Olá, bom dia. Carl Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal live stream, podcast and YouTube channel. Thank you to everybody who's finding the service useful. Do let me know how it can be improved. Today we, as ever, are looking at the global numbers, the situation in Portugal at the moment, and considering what resources might be useful. Be really glad to hear from you. In terms of what's useful to you in Portugal, the Facebook groups, your routines in the day, whatever it is you're doing to face the prospect of social isolation, self-isolation, social distancing, and so on, in the extraordinary times we're living in. It'd be great if you wouldn't mind sharing what's working for you. And I'll be sharing a little bit as well towards the end of this broadcast. Try and keep it brief today, 10 or 15 minutes or so on. I think a little and often is probably the best policy. So let's go to the global numbers and have a look at what's going on there. And we can see that in the big picture, we have 182,000 coronavirus cases, nearly 183,000. Deaths are 7,174. And the number that always gives me comfort is the number of recovered cases or people who've recovered from the virus, nearly 80,000 people there. So let's scroll down specifically to Portugal now. And I believe it's on here, it says we had our first death here in Portugal yesterday. An 80-year-old man who was in a hospital in Lisbon, the Santa Maria Hospital. Victim said to be an 80-year-old man who had several associated pathologies and had been hospitalized for several days, according to the portugalnews.com. Currently in Portugal, 331 cases and 3 recoveries, active cases 327, and 18 people in a serious or critical condition, giving us 32.5 people per million of population in terms of coronavirus cases here in Portugal. And if you see there, the numbers around the rest of the world, topping 80,000 in China, nearly 28,000 in Italy, Iran and Spain, interestingly. And we'll talk in a moment about the border between Portugal and Spain. But the Spanish numbers are pretty high in terms of the world ranking. This is the Good Morning Portugal live stream, podcast and YouTube. And let's now share the screen with you that gives you the update from Safe Communities Portugal. And do shout out if you're watching this on Facebook Live. We do this at 9 o'clock every morning on Facebook Live, or certainly on the weekdays. And we will be here to serve you in whatever way we can, usually a live stream, but certainly a podcast bringing you the latest situation. And this is the latest situation from our friends at Safe Communities Portugal, which I'm finding them one of the most, if not the most reliable source of information, keeping it straightforward and opinion free. We can do that elsewhere, can't we? And this was the update from 1700 hours yesterday, Monday. It is Tuesday, the 17th of March now. So we're looking here that last night at 2300 hours, the borders between Portugal and Spain were to be closed except for essential travel. And I think that means people who are returning home, basically, to their country of either Portugal or Spain, but no tourism. The borders between Portugal and Spain closed at 2300 hours. This was the message for last night. The measure was announced by the Minister of Internal Affairs and will be enforced until at least April the 15th. Air traffic between Portugal and Spain will be suspended from the end of the afternoon. This was yesterday afternoon, as well as the railway connections and the 2 river connections, one in the Minho and the other in the Algarve, the Minister of Internal Administration said yesterday. 9 border posts are open to allow entry of goods and labour-related circulation. So that's an exception. The movement of goods, post, etc., and freight, and labour-related movements. I'm sure that will end soon. If everyone's staying at home and self-isolating, I'm sure the labour-related side of it, workers, will be curtailed as well. You'd expect that. Recreational vehicles will not be able to dock in Portuguese marinas as of last night. It was decided, said Eduardo Cabrita, that air traffic between the 2 countries would be suspended as of the end of Monday. As of Monday. As of today, so what he said yesterday, we will not have flights between national airports and Spanish airports, Portuguese airports and Spanish airports. In a press conference, the minister said that the railway connections are also suspended, as are the two river connections in the Minho and Algarve, as we previously mentioned there. Portugal and Spain are concluding the technical notes that will allow today to reintroduce land border controls, establishing exclusively 9 crossing points, said the minister, adding that all other passages will be absolutely banned. Okay, so you'll have to go through those 9 border points. At a press conference in Lisbon, Cabrita underlined that mechanisms were to be established at the 9 land crossing points that limit this passage exclusively to goods and workers who have professional reasons for travelling to Spain or the neighbouring country to Portugal. So I suppose medical workers would be an exception to the movement, of course. We'll see. The minister said that in these cases, in conjunction with the Spanish authorities, health control will be carried out at the border of those entering and leaving Portugal. He also announced that, this was yesterday, a new press conference will be held to inform which 9 border posts will be open and from what time these measures will take effect. So I'll post those in the page as and when they're announced. The meeting, it was also decided that medical supplies, including ventilators and personal protection kits, be managed on a European scale. Cabrita recalled that several air connections have already been interrupted, namely from Italy and China, considered countries of high risk. And there was an earlier message yesterday, an update from Safe Communities Portugal from the government at midday. And just to give you a highlight from that, as it were, the most affected region in the country since last Sunday was Lisbon with 142 cases, which exceeded the number of cases in Porto, 138. Next are the central region, 31, and the Algarve, 13. In the Azores, there's only 1 case. Already in Alentejo and Madeira, no PCR test. The biological analysis used to check for the presence of the virus has yet tested positive. So Alentejo and Madeira are free currently, and there are currently 18 active transmission chains. So that's a good place to look. safecommunitiesportugal.com is a very reliable source of information, and they tend to update sorry, I've been thrown a little bit there. Good morning to you, Beyond Lisbon's Katia Lima. In recognition of the question, what are you finding helpful in these extraordinary times? Humour. And I know that you're doing your bit, Katia. And it's a great blog that Katia writes, just incidentally there, Beyond Lisbon. You can find as a WordPress blog. Yeah, Safe Communities Portugal, a very reliable source of information, tend to update a couple of times a day. Okay, I just want to share with you a little bit of a resource before we go. We'll end fairly swiftly this morning, and we can carry on our communication in the Stay Positive Portugal Facebook group. And I wanted to share this from a friend of mine, Gavin, back in the UK. And we can see here, here's a nice little graphic managing the coronavirus, COVID-19. It seems to have, just the virus itself is mutating. The name is mutated. We knew it as coronavirus, didn't we? And now it seems to be generally called COVID-19. This is from managing anxiety. For you, avoid excessive exposure to media coverage. And I suppose I may in some way see myself as part of that. What I hope to do is deliver to you the information in a quick and brief way as a morning update. If you do want to limit your exposure to media coverage or excessive exposure, I aim to give you the basic information so that you can get that and know what's what. Connect through calls, text, internet. Add extra time for daily stress relief. That's such good advice. Anyway, you know what good advice is, don't you? When the advice works anytime, not just in a crisis. So these are all good things that we would love to do anyway, and now is especially important. Practice self-care. Focus on your mental health. So that's for you. For your children, reassure them that they're safe, very important. Let them talk about their worries. I think that's really important too. And it can be difficult kind of to hear what's bothering people and what's upsetting people, but I think better out than in. Share your own coping skills with your children. Limit their news exposure and create a routine and a structure. And I think it's interesting, within routine and structure, obviously it's good to have free time as well, isn't it? So that your children can improvise and be spontaneous or learn even to deal with boredom. which seems to be coming back into fashion, the idea of having to face boredom. For quarantine, isolation, keep in contact with your loved ones via social media, texts and phone calls. Create a daily self-care routine. Keep yourself busy. Games, books, movies. I know my daughter, who's over there in Italy, in the Italian lockdown, embarked on a 1,000-piece jigsaw. I think jigsaws are going to be coming out from the back of the cupboard, aren't they? And focus on new relaxation techniques. And we discovered one yesterday, thanks to Freya Thika, who's in Porto. And she taught us the 7-11 breathing technique, which I found really helpful. I did it with her online, and it was really good. So perhaps we can leave it there this morning. Please do share with me, what are you finding helpful in these extraordinary times? We have the Stay Positive Portugal Facebook group, which is part of the Good Morning Portugal organization. And late last night, just one final thing, with Mrs. Munson, we started a journal, really, an audio journal, a podcast. We've called it the Pillow Talk, the Portugal Pillow Talk podcast, which is just our wrap up of the day, really, of the things we're looking at and doing. I think it was called Potatoes, Puppies, Potting Up, Pensioners. It was basically lots of things that we were reflecting on, because we started to grow our own food, we started to cook differently, we started to see the world differently, as I think many people are now, and we're sharing our roundup as a bit of an audio journal at the end of each day. That's available from the Good Morning Portugal podcast pipeline, I suppose. Most easily found on Spotify, I think, but we're also on iTunes, or go to the website www.goodmorningportugal.com, where I will leave it today and wish you well. Boa sorte, saúde, take care, bye for now, Talogo. I'll see you in the morning. Have a great day, bye for now.